Good afternoon and welcome back to another episode of The Great Outdoors with Doug. This is Doug, I'm Adam. And how was your Thanksgiving, my friend?
Very, very good. I got fat,
Okay.
and I enjoyed a little bit of outdoors, enjoyed a little bit of turkey, enjoyed a little bit of football. I don't want to talk about the Bears.
Okay.
I just don't want to talk about the Bears. I texted you after, and I was gonna try to come up with what happened, what were they thinking, why did it? I think I did like one word, like ouch or oof. Or,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's one of those things where I think there's a Modest Mouse song, "Gravity Rides Everything" or something like that.
Okay.
And it's just things happen.
Yeah.
Things happen, and
Right.
sometimes things have to break before they can get fixed. And so it's one of those things where, yes, the Bears lost the game. Don't worry, folks. We'll talk about the topics soon. But first this. It's one of those things where because they lose that game and they fire their coach, it's good. That loss leads to more wins. And then it has been kind of crazy, though, to read some of the reports. Now you got me going.
I'm sorry. I'm not sorry at all.
The Bears, the GM, Ryan Poles, he wanted to fire the
Himself?
head coach after.
Oh.
Well, it's not his fault.
Okay.
I firmly believe this.
Okay.
But here's whose fault it is: George McCaskey. So he wanted to fire Eberflus after last season. George McCaskey wouldn't let him. He wanted to fire Eberflus after the Patriots game. George McCaskey didn't let him. And so it's kind of one of those things where I don't think it's like intentional, like Major League or Major League 2, if you've seen those films.
I have.
I think it's more of a thing where, if you have just a complete dunce hat wearer who is owning a professional football team that he married into and doesn't know anything about football, I think you can run into some problems.
Yeah.
And I think the fans deserve better, but you hate to be happy about someone losing their job.
Right.
But I think
There'll be presents under the tree, though.
yeah,
I mean,
the Eberflus family is going to be just fine.
Yeah.
But it was time for a change, and because of that loss, and because of the blatant mishandling of the late game situation there, you're able to get some positive change, at least for the fans.
Okay.
So I was very much in the camp of, hey, it's time to. I do like Thomas Brown, who was promoted from talk about like a weird situation. He's just getting promoted based on other people getting fired. Now he's the head coach. He was quarterback's coach to OC. OC is fired, and then head coach because the head coach is fired. So it's kind of wild.
So I'm a biologist. I'm a ducks and a deer and a fishing and an outdoors kind of guy. And you know your stuff. You can dot your I's and cross your T's. You know the ins and the outs of professional sports. What I'm hearing, just as a flat-footed, German, is like, so this is just a different version of the Dallas Cowboys? When you got an owner that...
They've won more than one Super Bowl.
Okay.
Now, if we're talking about...
that's why I was asking you.
World champions.
Okay.
Hey, really good in 1946, 1963. Super Bowl era has been a little rough. The Bears as a franchise are vastly overrated. They're like, oh yeah, what a historic team. Yeah. Back when there were dinosaurs walking the earth, they used to be pretty good. But since then, like, what have you done for me lately? So it is a cycle of suffering for the fan base. I started watching the Bears in 1998, 99. Cade McNown was the first quarterback I remember.
Sorry to hear that.
And, yeah, right? Me too. And so it's kind of been this cycle of, like, it's been rough.
Yeah.
It's been rough. And, like, the celebrated guy is now, like, for recent history of Chicago Bears quarterbacks, is Jay Cutler. He never went to a Pro Bowl. And he was a jerk. So it's like, we'll see.
Well,
we'll see.
Okay, so in a little similar fashion, you talk about things like the good old days, and we've talked this fall about pheasant numbers and about deer numbers. Now they're just not where the hunters wanted to be.
Yeah.
It's a supply and demand thing. We don't have the deer numbers to supply the tags for all the hunters that want it. We don't have a pheasant population that's going gangbusters like we had in our good old days for pheasant and deer were about 15 years ago, 2007, 8, 2009, in that kind of wheelhouse. And that we tried to tell hunters that you're living in the good old days. This is absolutely fantastic. You're not just getting 1 deer tag, you're getting 5 deer tags. You're not just shooting a limit of pheasants, you're shooting a limit of pheasants almost every time you go out. You're shooting a limit of pheasants in Cass County and in western North Dakota, just all across the state.
Pheasants on pheasants on pheasants.
Right. It was fantastic. It was great. And as you kind of alluded to, when you talk about a cycle, when you talk about a downward trend, whether it's Chicago Bears or deer and pheasants in North Dakota, it's been on the slide.
That's a smooth transition, my friend. We're talking about little habitat loss. We're talking about those numbers. They're down.
Yeah.
We want them to go back up.
Right. And it's the same thing. The Bears want to win. You want to turn this thing around, and you understand that there's decisions that have to be made by the owners, by the general managers, by the coaches, and then you've got to have the talent out there. And it does. We've done this unintentionally many times, talking about the parallels between sports and the outdoors. And when it comes to hunting, it's not just one thing. It's not just like, hey, we need to put some more grassland on. We need habitat. We absolutely need habitat in North Dakota. We can't control the weather, so as it's snowing and cold and winter is here in the early part of December, we can't control the weather. But what we're saying is, from Game and Fish, from the landowners, the farmers and the ranchers, that they want to see some pheasants out there. They want to see a few deer out there. The small town gas station, the small town cafe, they want to have hunters come out there. Even the big box stores that are selling shotguns, that are selling camouflage equipment, they want to have hunters. So everybody wants to win. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to put a winning team on the field. And in North Dakota, we recognize that there's some work that needs to be done. So we're going to try to bring all the different players to the table and say, what do we need to do to win? What is it? Is it a coach? Is it a quarterback? What do we need to do to win?
So you're saying that you guys are trying to find solutions to bring the you're trying to bring those pheasant populations back up. You're trying to bring those deer populations back up. Yeah, tell me a little bit more if you know.
Right.
Maybe you're still kind of early on in the brainstorming phase, but what's
Okay.
it looking like so far?
So there's going to be a summit next week, December 17th, not next week, but December 17th, there's going to be a summit in Bismarck. And I appreciate you bringing up this topic, and it's open to the public. You can register on the Game and Fish Department website. It is open to the public, and it's going to be game and fish biologists and wildlife managers. It's going to be state legislators. They're the ones that can look at different programs and look at different funding mechanisms. What can we do to help? It's going to be also people from the economic side of things, from whether it's from businesses, whether it's from farmers, ranchers. It's going to be all these different people that have a real skin in the game, and they're going to be at the table. We're not going to win the Super Bowl at a meeting. It's not going to be. It's going to be a process. First thing you have to do is recognize, what do we need to do? A lot of it comes down to habitat. When we talk about deer and pheasants, but to get that habitat, to get that grassland out there, that's where it becomes a little bit harder and a little more difficult. There's a lot of different factors that come into play. The economics of it. Do you expect farmers and ranchers to take corn and soybeans out of production and put CRP out there? You can't expect them to take a loss. So there's a lot of different talking points to understand, where are you coming from? What can we do? What can Game and Fish do differently? What can we do better? And that's what this summit is all about. And part of it, I'm not expecting everybody to change their schedule and to drive out and to attend this meeting. Part of it is to let the hunters and the farmers and the ranchers and the business owners know that this is not something. We're not pretending that the Bears are going to the playoffs. We're not pretending that we've got a Super Bowl winning combination here. What we're realizing is that we've got some work to do, and the work starts now, and the work is moving forward with this Habitat and Access Summit that's going to take place December 17th in Bismarck.
Okay, very good. So it sounds like you guys are one of many different organizations, different demographics, different peoples who are kind of looking to recognize your place in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Both like literally and metaphorically speaking.
Right.
In like, how does our presence affect, how do our habits affect, so you guys can kind of all look to work together to bring back, because even if you're not a hunter or a fisher, you know, the habitat is crucial. People come up here, people move here, people want to live here, people want to stay here, and a big part of that is because of the wildlife you know, it's everything that's behind you, man.
Yeah,
It's
boy.
be legendary. We're talking about a legendary place to live and the wildlife, the outdoors that we have access to. And so how can they look to contribute to a winning formula, if you will?
Right. And there's a reason that even if you don't hunt, even if you're just visiting North Dakota, that it might be Thanksgiving and you go out to the Badlands and you're stopping and you're taking pictures and you're just appreciating the outdoors. And that's so much a part of the fabric of where we live. I mean, it's white, it's cold, it's snowy out there, but we still appreciate the outdoors 24/7, 365. And I get it and I understand that there is something for just, you know, going out there and soaking it all in and seeing the sunlight and breathing that fresh air. But there's also something cool if you go out to Teddy Roosevelt Park and whether you see wild horses or elk or even just a gopher, a pocket gopher running around out there. There's something cool. And when we talk about habitat, a lot of times for ducks and deer, we're talking about CRP, we're talking about grassland, but the habitat in North Dakota is Badlands, it's rolling hills, it's rivers. You don't just grow deer in one spot. Those deer use different habitats in the spring, in the summer, in the fall, in the winter, and that's why it's so big. When we go back to when you talk about making decisions and looking to the future, think of it in terms like Game and Fish. We're not a owner. The outdoors of North Dakota is more like the Green Bay Packers.
Oh.
And I know from watching your picks the other day, what you think about the Green Bay Packers.
Don't like them. Don't like them.
You softened it a little bit.
Yeah.
You softened it, but and the Green Bay Packers are like a cooperatively owned franchise.
Yes. Oh, I see where you're going.
And the outdoors of North Dakota, it's not owned by Game and Fish.
It's owned by everybody.
It's owned by everybody.
Genius.
And we manage,
This is why you're a legend.
Yeah.
Stuff like this. I see what you're getting at.
Most legends aren't with us anymore, so I'm hoping that I'm going to go with the myth or the man
the
for
myth.
a while here. I'll stick with that.
Yeah.
But I want to just encourage people. To number one, understand that this is taking place. Game and Fish realizes it. Game and Fish, the farmers, the ranchers, the landowners, the business, the legislature. We've got a legislative session that's going to be opening up again after the calendar year. And there's going to be decisions that are made. So if you are a hunter and angler, if you just love the outdoors of North Dakota, then make sure that you connect with your legislators and let them know that when bills that can impact habitat and conservation in North Dakota, that you've got some skin in the game and you want to be heard.
Very good. And I got to ask, what has changed? Because you talked about it was the good old days, and that's like 15, 20 years ago, based on some of the years you were throwing out there. But what changed?
What has changed a lot is you hear a reference to CRP. It's Conservation and Reserve Program. It's not the only thing, but in North Dakota, it's a huge thing.
Okay.
In North Dakota, there's somewhere around 45 million acres. And I know sometimes these numbers, when you hear about contracts, the numbers kind of get numb. But we used to have about 4 million acres of CRP in North Dakota. Now we're down closer to maybe a little over 1 million acres. So we've lost like 2/3 of some real strong grassland habitat in North Dakota.
That'll do it.
Right. And if you wanted to look at a graph, you would see that the deer tag allocation and the pheasant harvest have dropped right along with the loss of habitat. And that's why this is so important. It's going to be a long-term project. It's going to be a long-term goal, but we're not pretending it doesn't exist, and that's part of the message is.
Okay, very good. And it's funny you mentioned Teddy Roosevelt National Park.
Yeah.
I was out there and just on Friday, late morning, early afternoon, bald eagle.
Really?
Oh yeah. Some bison.
Yeah.
Plenty of horses.
Yeah.
Always a lot of horses.
Yep.
Some deer.
Yeah.
A coyote.
Oh, really?
And it was weird because normally you don't see coyotes because they're good at not being seen.
Yeah, they don't want to be seen.
Yeah, but it was just like laying. It was just chilling.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, I wonder if he was like, got in a fight with the in-laws at the Thanksgiving.
Oh, day after
table.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, they're like, I heard you're the Utah Hockey Club now.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, I'm a coyote.
I'm a coyote. Always have been. You
Always
can call me
have
what you
been.
want.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess if that's the way you feel, I'll be out here.
I'm going to go over here. Cool off.
No, and we mentioned that going into the Thanksgiving, and realistically going heading towards Christmas when you have people that are traveling to North Dakota, whether they're friends or family, whether they're sons and daughters bringing back their new son-in-law, whatever that might be. The outdoors is so healing and so therapeutic.
Yeah.
If you want to be in the consumptive side of things, our archery deer tags in North Dakota, our archery deer season goes till January 5th. And as a non-resident, you don't have to go through a lottery. You can essentially buy that over the computer online, and you can hunt deer through the holiday season into January 5th. Our pheasant season, our grouse season, we've got some hunting seasons taking place. If you were traveling back and forth, I'm going to go out on a limb and say maybe you saw like a little ice shack out on a.
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah. So ice fishing is starting.
Okay, yeah, and so we talked about it's be colder for longer. It's been colder
for
longer, and today we got a squall.
Yeah,
that's a fun word.
Did we have more than did we have multiples of squalls? It felt like maybe more.
It was a lot of squalls.
It was. Yeah.
I don't know how squalls work. I'm not a squall expert by any stretch.
Leave that to Russ.
I'm gonna have to talk to Russ about that.
You talk to Russ.
I'll ask him tomorrow at length about the squalls. But yeah, like I was actually on the phone with one of our reporters here. Telling him about a story I got tipped off on, and then all of a sudden my ear, and I'm like, this is not very fun at all.
No.
For this, you're holding it to your ear, and anyway, swipe that thing, and then I'm in the meeting, goes off again.
Yeah.
And so anyway, yeah, squall time, baby.
And for people that like to ice fish, cold and colder and longer is a good thing.
Yes.
And we've seen. We've seen some cold temperatures for the last week, and especially in places like from Devil's Lake and north, we got places with 6-7 inches of ice, maybe even more as we speak. So as we've referenced, it's not the time just to go, hey, let's go check out ice fishing. You still have to be safe.
Yeah.
Ice is never 100% safe, but again, the bottom line is ice fishing is, there's not like an opening day and a closing day. It's about being smart and being safe, but we've got a lot of people that are venturing on. Way too early to start thinking about, driving ATVs and UTVs
Armored
and pickup
tank.
trucks. And no.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's ever a time to drive the armored. You just got to go big, don't you? Armored tank. I mean.
I'm just throwing things out there. You're throwing things out there. I'm testing the limits.
Yeah. The war on winter. The war on winter. How do you beat it? How do you beat it?
You never do.
I don't know, man, but you don't quit.
Watching basketball.
That's
how I win.
The white flag?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of good things. We were out talking to a few people today. Harrison's working on a story, just a fun little winter story later today, and we're interviewing just the nicest old lady. And like, hey, we always ask you to spell your first and last name. She's like, well, I am from Minnesota, and I've lived here my whole life, and just starts going. And I'm like, that's the soundbite right there.
That's right. You got it.
But then she started talking about, like, I'm going to go home, and I'm going to get cuddled up in my blanket. And it's, that's how you got to roll with it, baby. You know what I mean? Like, it's winter, it's an opportunity. Everything in life is an opportunity.
No, and my wife and I have talked about that as well. Is like, when it's cold and it's dark, you don't feel guilty just like staying inside. Just like, because in the summertime it's a beautiful summer. Like, oh, you better get outside. You better enjoy it.
Yeah.
And now it's cold and it's snowing. It's like, okay, no mas. That's we'll tap out for a little bit.
You see this?
DePaul
Blue Demons, undefeated.
Yeah.
They're playing tonight. Oh no, it's too cold to go out for my evening jog. I guess I'll be watching DePaul taking on Texas Tech.
Texas Tech and DePaul. Okay.
Yeah, and DePaul's undefeated, first time 7-0 since 2019. Anyway, getting off base here.
Talk about the good old days. You can go back to the 80s with DePaul too. And
yeah. We got.
So is there DePaul and the Bears 40 years later?
Yeah,
Still searching for the winning formula?
Well, DePaul got a good coach.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe the Bears can look at that. Like, hey, this is a proven head coach. It doesn't have to be, it can also work in football. What a concept. Get a proven head coach. When's the last time the Bears had a proven head coach? I think it was John Fox, and that also didn't work. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about some outdoor safety. We're kind of talking about the ice fishing, and we've been talking about that, but there's so many different things to consider when you're talking about like outdoor safety tips. And some of this stuff if you got half a brain, it should be obvious. Don't walk on the thin ice, you jabroni. But like, what about some of the more underrated safety advice? What about some of the overlooked safety advice?
That's a really kind of interesting you bring that up, some of the overlooked stuff, because, you know, when we talk about outdoor safety, you know, sometimes we go down to the fundamental of, hey, make sure you wear your seatbelt when you're traveling out there. I mean, stuff that you shouldn't have to remind people of. Here's one thing, and I don't know if I'm not like endorsing who makes these, but basically what these are, they refer to them as yak tracks.
Yak track.
And basically what it is, it's really quick, it's really fast, and it's really easy, and you can slip it on just about any of your boots.
And those things, like even going from the parking lot to your garage.
Yeah. I mean, it isn't just for people that go ice fishing.
Yeah.
But especially, and you know, I'm old, and now more than ever, you go out on, and I'm talking specifically, because you're right, whether it's parking lots or sidewalks or driveways or any place like that, you have a little bit of snow, and right underneath that, if you've got some ice, you can fall down, and the worst case scenarios that I shouldn't say, there's a lot of worst case scenarios. One of the worst case scenarios, you're out ice fishing all by yourself, and you slip on the ice, you hit your head.
Concussed.
And
knocked out. And
I mean,
what, are you just waiting?
Right.
You're frozen.
Right. Now, this isn't going to guarantee it's not going to, but it's sure going to help. And they're like maybe $30, $40 depending on what you buy. And when you consider how much money people like to spend on their recreation, whether
or
it's
even insurance, right?
I
That's
know.
what that is insurance.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, this is insurance. Your family deserves you to stay safe. So it's just one of those things that's kind of overlooked because you think, you know what, I spend all my time outdoors, I don't have to worry about that. Buy them, you won't regret it, you slip them on. And I got a couple different pairs of these. I got one pair of my boots that I just keep on there all the time, so I know I just slip them on. They're already on the boots, and you head on out the door. So it's just one maybe overlooked item for safety. Here's one other one. And this might seem kind of dorky.
No, I'm all about that.
Are you really?
Oh, that's fantastic.
You're just trying to make me feel better?
No, I mean, I have one that's like more of a strap, but
right.
Those are awesome.
It really is. We don't have a lot of sunlight right now. I mean, it's like dark. What time do you get to work? Boss is listening.
It depends on the day.
Yeah.
But usually it's somewhere like 8:15 to 8:45, unless there's a reason I need to be there earlier or later.
Yeah, and then what time do you leave?
It can once again depend on the day, but somewhere in that 4 to 6 range.
So quite frankly, it can be dark when you're heading to work and dark when you're going home.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of daylight. Having your hands free is so valuable. Something goes wrong, your car, you're outdoors, whatever you're at. When it's dark, it makes things 1,000 times worse. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you start trying to mess around with stuff, I mean, do it, in your office. Close your eyes and try to it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And just you can pick.
Throw it on there.
I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
You want to put it on? You got better hair than I do. I'm right. See, I was just gonna toy with you.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It makes such a difference when it's dark if you can put on a light and you can just see.
That looks
I mean,
nice.
This ain't about style.
All right, I'm gonna
Look at
put
me.
it on.
Is it about style?
No.
No, it's not
Function.
about style. It's about functionality. Right.
You're not getting this back, my friend.
You know how many of those I have?
100.
Just one.
Okay. Okay, well, you can have
So
it
I'm getting it back.
But it is nice.
My point, and I think you mentioned they make the bands. Like you can buy 3 packs of the bands for cheap, and they come in. I encourage people to put one in every one of your vehicles. Have it right next to. I always, I tell my kids to have spare gloves and a spare hat and a spare light right next to you. So, if it's dark out, you've got light, and you can find stuff that you're looking for.
I got a funny story for you. I am a big nighttime bike rider.
Yeah.
And I was going on a ride a couple summers ago over here on a path in South Fargo, and I have a helmet with a built-in light.
Yep.
And my friend, I was like, hey, you can borrow my, whatever you call it, the one that's on a headband.
Yeah, the band. Yep.
Yeah. And so I give it to him. He doesn't warn me. He flicks it on, and that's like many lumens.
Oh,
I don't know how many lumens, but many lumens, lots of lumens. And I'm just like, my eyeballs I mean, it was like I was looking at that guy from the X-Men with the laser eyes. It was
good.
And I'm just like seeing the indentation of like the light that just blasted my retinas and corneas. Tough stuff. But those are great. Those are great.
Yeah, so just a couple of things, like, you know, we can talk for hours about safety equipment, about hand warmers and different types of devices. Maybe we'll do that, you know, further on in winter. But I just want to encourage people. I want, you know, we've talked about how dark it is. We talked about cold and snow, but to get outdoors for a little while and stay safe while you're doing it. And some of the things that you can do are relatively cheap, but you just have to do it.
Yeah.
You just have to do it.
You got to do it. Let's see. I got to get some of those ice cleats. Like that a lot. I think we've gone through just about everything on our little rundown.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to get into?
I mean, I can't encourage people enough to get outdoors. I mean, even if it's just a walk around the block after supper. You know, for me, sometimes it takes longer to get yourself ready to go outdoors than the time that you spend outdoors. But breathing that fresh air, getting outdoors, whether it's the park. I mean, yeah, we're all about ice fishing. We're all about coyote hunting. We're all about pheasant hunting and archery deer hunting. But, you know, in the totality of it, there is also something, you know, you can just go out in the backyard with the white blanket of snow and the stars or the moon or whatever. And it's, you know, it's kind of peaceful out there.
It's real nice. It's real nice. And I think you can just kind of dress for the elements too. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say also get indoors. Because there's a lot of fun things to do in the area. You mentioned you went to the Chris Kindle Market there. It's like indoor and outdoor. And yes, you playing this weekend. How about more people get some tickets, get to that game? You know what I mean? I feel like it's so important this time of year. We're talking about the safety of being outdoors, but like also it's just good for your mental health to go do those kind of things.
Get around some people.
Yeah. You got the Fargo Force going. Why don't you go with the doubleheader this weekend? You got a Saturday. You can go a situation where you go to the Bison.
Yeah.
Bring the whole family if you want, and then go to the Force game too. And then on Sunday, you can relax. I think the Vikings are playing. Who are they playing?
Vikings, they defeated the Cardinals.
They defeated the Cardinals.
Next victim for the Vikings.
Ooh, I was just kidding. Huge one. The Kirko Bowl.
Oh, that's right.
Kirk Cousins coming to town.
Yeah.
I got a friend going to that one.
Bears?
No, he's a Vikings fan.
No, and I'm asking you.
Oh, yeah.
Bears, Packers?
Gosh.
Is it?
I try not to think about them
You were
anymore.
picking the game. You were picking the game yesterday.
Yeah, no, they got the 49ers.
Oh, 49ers, okay.
Yeah, I think it's one of those weird things where you fire your coach and you get a win.
I heard that.
Yeah, I think
you really believe that?
I do.
Or there's complete disarray and
I think that it's just kind of this thing. Well, the 49ers, more for like bad luck than bad coaching, but they're having the injuries. Like you got a banged up quarterback. Christian McCaffrey's out for the year. Deebo Samuel hasn't looked right all year. Meanwhile, I think that the Bears, like, they've been in so many super close games. Like, the last 3 have all been 3 points or less, you know. And so, I don't know. I think that this is a team that, like, just as easily could be 8-4 instead of 4-8. But, you know, that's the margin of
trying to convince yourself, aren't you?
The cycle of suffering.
What are the Vikings? 10-2?
Very good at sports. 10-2.
10-2.
Yeah.
And
about to be 11-2.
I'd much rather be an overrated 10-2 team than an underrated 2-10 team.
You know, in some circles, I think the Vikings might actually be underrated.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think they're
out.
very, very good. We're going to find out.
Yep.
Anyway, don't get me started because I won't stop. Thank you, my friend.
Take
Always
care.
a pleasure. And thank you all for tuning in on Valley News Now, talking great outdoors with Doug. And we'll see you next time.